Hollywood is built on fame, power, and ego, but some stars went further, challenging something far greater. From shocking speeches to public statements, these are the stories of those who dared to question God and what happened next. John Lennon, we're more popular than Jesus. In 1966, the world's biggest band, the Beatles, were unstoppable. Then John Lennon made a statement that would haunt him forever. He said, "Christianity will go. It will vanish and shrink. We're more popular than Jesus now." The world erupted. Church groups burned Beatles records, radio stations banned their songs, and Lennon was forced to apologize. He claimed he didn't mean to insult religion. But for many, the damage was already done. Some fans still believe that the tragic way Lennon's life ended years later was a grim reminder that words have consequences. Marilyn Monroe. I don't need your Jesus. She was the most desired woman in the world, the definition of Hollywood glamour. But behind the spotlight, Marilyn Monroe battled loneliness, depression, and a haunting emptiness. In 1962, evangelist Billy Graham reportedly tried to speak with her about faith. He told her, "The Spirit of God has sent me to talk with you." Marilyn smiled and replied, "I don't need your Jesus." Just weeks later, she was found dead in her Los Angeles home. Some say it was coincidence. Others believe it was a chilling reminder that no amount of fame can replace faith. J. Bruce Ismay. Not even God can sink this ship. J. Bruce Ismay, chairman of the White Star Line, boasted of the Titanic's perfection, calling it unsinkable. He reportedly declared, "Not even God himself could sink this ship," words that would echo through history. When the Titanic struck the iceberg, Ismay escaped in a lifeboat while more than 1,500 souls perished. He lived, but in lifelong disgrace. The man who defied heaven survived the sea, only to drown in guilt. Jim Morrison, you're talking to God. He called himself the Lizard King, wild, poetic, untouchable. Jim Morrison, the voice of the Doors, lived like he was immortal. During a concert, when a fan shouted, "You're a god," Morrison replied, "You're right, you're talking to God." His words became legend and a warning. Drugs, chaos, and rebellion consumed his life. And at just 27 years old, he was gone, found lifeless in a bathtub in Paris. To some, he was a rock icon. To others, a man who mocked heaven and paid the ultimate price. Heath Ledger, the man who became chaos. He reached Hollywood's pinnacle, portraying the Joker, the very personification of evil. Ledger openly mocked faith, once saying, "I don't believe in God. I believe in chaos." To embody the Joker, he isolated himself for weeks, filling journals with twisted thoughts, sketches, and lines of madness. His performance was so intense that even Christopher Nolan said he had given himself over to the abyss. Some saw the Joker as a modern Antichrist, a symbol of rebellion against all divine order. At just 28, Heath was found dead in his New York apartment, surrounded by prescription pills. He sought chaos, and in the end, chaos claimed him. Benito Mussolini, the man who played God. He called himself Il Duce, Italy's dictator, claiming to be the nation's savior. Mussolini scorned God, proclaiming, "Fascism is not a faith in God, but in action and in man." He demanded worship for himself and the state, replacing devotion to God with a cult of personality. But pride meets its reckoning. In April 1945, Mussolini tried to flee, but was captured alongside his mistress. Both were executed, and their bodies publicly hung upside down in Milan, beaten and humiliated by the people who once adored him. The man who wanted to be worshipped as a god ended in disgrace. Mussolini's story is a warning. Those who exalt themselves above God will fall. Avicii, the music that haunted him. He was a global sensation, a DJ whose music filled stadiums and hearts alike. But behind the beats, Avicii openly rejected faith, saying, "I'm more of an atheist than anything. I don't believe in God." He dismissed religion, believing nothing controlled life or death. By 28, despite fame and fortune, he was found lifeless in Oman, a tragic end confirmed as suicide. His family said he couldn't go on any longer, seeking peace. The young man who denied God and lived only for music was consumed by the emptiness inside him. Avicii's story became a haunting reminder. Ignoring the spiritual void can have the heaviest cost. Stephen Hawking, the mind that questioned God. He was one of the greatest minds in history, unlocking the secrets of the universe. But Stephen Hawking openly questioned God, once saying, "There is no God. Science explains everything." He challenged faith with logic, declaring the cosmos governed by laws, not divine will. For decades, he inspired millions while battling a body that refused to obey him. Yet even brilliance could not escape human mortality. He died in 2018 at 76. Hawking's life reminds us that intellect alone can reach the stars, but the soul still seeks meaning. Prince, the genius who played with fire. He was a musical visionary, selling over 100 million records and redefining pop culture. In his songs, he often wrestled with questions of faith, once asking, "Do I believe in God? Do I believe in me?" His life was a mix of brilliance and inner conflict, and his sudden death in 2016 shocked the world. Perhaps Prince's story reminds us how even legends struggle between fame, faith, and fate. Jim Jones, the man who claimed divinity. He founded the People's Temple, posing as a pastor preaching Christ and justice. But over time, Jim Jones stopped preaching God and started preaching himself. He declared, "I am the way, the truth, and the life," claiming to be God incarnate on earth. In 1978, over 900 followers moved to Jonestown in the Guyana jungle, where Jones controlled every aspect of their lives. After a congressman investigating the sect was murdered, Jones ordered the ultimate act: poisoned Flavor Aid. More than 918 people died, including 300 children, victims of a man who dared to usurp God. Yuri Gagarin, the man in space who saw no God. He was the first human to orbit the Earth, a hero who touched the stars. Yuri Gagarin famously said after his historic flight, "I don't see any God up here," challenging faith with his cosmic perspective. The Soviet state, atheist and proud, celebrated him as proof that man, not God, controlled the heavens. Yet even in glory, he remained mortal. Gagarin died in 1968 in a plane crash at just 34. His story reminds us, human achievement can reach the stars. But questioning the divine often stirs controversy on Earth. The idol who wanted to be worshipped. He was one of the most controversial voices of a new generation. XXXTentacion rose from pain, chaos, and rebellion. His music spoke to millions lost in darkness. But fame changed him. In an old recording, he was heard saying, "All of these people will be worshiping me." He began to see himself not just as an artist, but as a god among men. At just 20 years old in 2018, he was shot and killed in Florida during a robbery. The same fame he thought would make him untouchable brought him to his end. His sin was pride, believing adoration could replace salvation and worship could come from men instead of God. George Carlin, the comedian who mocked God. He was one of the sharpest minds in comedy, fearless, brilliant, and brutally honest. George Carlin built his career tearing down sacred institutions, and none more fiercely than religion. In his infamous routine, he declared, "Religion is bullshit," mocking belief in God as a man-made lie to control the weak. Audiences laughed, cheered, and called him a truth-teller, but behind the jokes was deep contempt for faith itself. Carlin believed only in logic, not salvation, only in reason, not redemption. When he died in 2008 at 71, his words still echoed across the world, a man who spent a lifetime laughing at heaven, never knowing if anyone was listening back. His sin was mockery, turning belief into a punchline and faith into entertainment. Joseph Stalin, the man who defied God. He ruled the Soviet Union with iron and terror for over 3 decades. Stalin saw faith as an enemy, shutting churches, executing priests, and teaching atheism as law. He declared, "Religion is the opium of the people," and demanded to be worshipped as a living God. His portraits were everywhere, his word absolute, his power unquestioned. But even the dictator could not escape mortality. One day, a stroke struck him down in his own residence. The man who tried to erase God from the earth died alone, cursed and haunted, a grim reminder that denying the divine invites its own reckoning. Bon Scott, the voice on the highway to hell. He was the raspy, electrifying voice of AC/DC, thrilling audiences worldwide. But his lyrics carried a dark pride. In Highway to Hell, he shouted, "I'm on the highway to hell," while thousands echoed his words. The Bible warns, "Whatever a man sows, he will also reap." Less than a year later, Bon Scott was found dead in a car after a night of heavy drinking in London, only 33, the same age as Christ at his death. The man who glorified the highway to hell met the fate he celebrated. Bon Scott's story is a haunting reminder. Pride in evil can become one's own undoing. Charles Manson, the false messiah. He led the cult known as the Family, a group of young, manipulated followers who saw him as a messiah. Manson claimed, "I am Jesus. I have returned to lead the chosen," blending Bible verses with apocalyptic delusions. In August 1969, he ordered the brutal murder of Sharon Tate and others, writing satanic messages with their blood. The world witnessed evil wearing the mask of spirituality. Manson spent nearly 50 years in prison, still proclaiming himself Christ and Satan. He died in 2017, leaving only terror and madness behind, a false prophet undone by pride and deceit. Tancredo Neves, the president who never took office. He was Brazil's chosen leader, a symbol of hope after years of dictatorship. Confident in his victory, he reportedly said, "If I get 500,000 votes, not even God will remove me from the presidency." But fate had other plans. On the eve of his inauguration, he fell gravely ill. Despite the prayers of millions, he never took office and died shortly after, at 75. His story is a haunting reminder. No human can control destiny, and even bold promises cannot defy mortality. Madonna, the queen of blasphemy? The 80s gave us pop rebellion like never before, and Madonna led the charge. Her Like a Prayer video mixed faith and sexuality with burning crosses and scenes that shocked the world. The Vatican condemned her, and Pepsi canceled her $1 million deal overnight. But Madonna never apologized. She once said, "I'm not mocking God. I'm showing people how faith and sin live together." Love her or hate her, she proved that controversy could be just as powerful as prayer. Kanye West, From Ego to Redemption. Kanye West once called himself a god. In 2013, he released a song titled, "I Am a God," declaring, "I just talked to Jesus. He said, 'What up, Jesus?'" Fans called it genius, others called it blasphemy. But years later, Kanye surprised everyone by releasing a gospel album, Jesus is King, saying he'd found faith again. Whether his change was spiritual or symbolic, one thing was clear: even in fame, the search for God never really ends. What do you think? Did these stars go too far, or were they just expressing freedom of speech? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep Hollywood stories.